My name is Eric Lopez. I'm a mindfulness facilitator at Mindful Being, and I have been teaching mindfulness for about, I would say, 17 or 18 years. And I have been teaching this particular course, Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, approximately for the same amount of time. Actually, the very first formal mindfulness intervention that I taught was precisely MBSR. So I'm very happy to be here with you all. And I'm going to be talking first of all about what is MBSR, what is this program. Even though some of you might already be familiar with it, I'm going to talk a little bit about what that is. We're also going to be experiencing firsthand what does it feel like to practice mindfulness within the MBSR program. So what's sort of the version of mindfulness that we teach in MBSR. So we're going to practice, we're going to share a little bit about your experience practicing, and we're also going to be talking about class logistics. You know, if you have any questions about that, I'll be more than happy to answer that. And finally, we'll have some space for Q&A. In this type of sessions, we always have questions, and again, I'm also very happy to tackle them. So anyway, that's sort of our flight plan for this evening. And probably the best place to begin is by sharing a little bit about what is MBSR. Especially now, you know, that mindfulness has become like, you know, the trendiest thing since I don't know what. So it's very, very popular. MBSR actually stands for a certain type of mindfulness intervention. There are a lot of people who talk about mindfulness. Everyone speaks about how mindfulness is so great, and that's true in a way. But what a lot of people don't know, especially people who speak a lot about the scientifically documented benefits of mindfulness, is that approximately 90% of all research studies on mindfulness have actually been conducted with this program, with MBSR. So if you find whatever news about the benefits of mindfulness on the internet or wherever, chances are that they're talking about this very course. They're talking about MBSR. So MBSR MBSR originated actually a long time ago, 41 years ago, 42 years ago, at the University of Massachusetts Medical School by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn. Dr. John Kabat-Zinn is regarded by a lot of people in the field as the father of mindfulness. He's one of the pioneers that actually translated these ancient practices that have been around for centuries into mainstream medicine and, broadly speaking, into the general public as well. So, you know, back in '79, John Kabat-Zinn was working at the UMass Medical School, and she was already a meditation practitioner. However, he understood that if he wanted to offer meditation-based practices to medical patients, it would be impossible to do or very difficult to do within a religious context. So when John Kabat-Zinn started teaching this, which many years ago was called the Stress Reduction and Relaxation Program, later it was called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, he started working with patients with chronic medical conditions. Those patients, which even to this day, to whom the medical system usually cannot offer them an answer. For instance, people with chronic pain who take a lot of pills and go to whatever treatment, but the pain lingers. Or people with chronic conditions to which modern medicine can only offer treating symptoms and that kind of stuff. So John Kabat-Zinn started offering these practices to chronic patients to alleviate the stress associated with these conditions. Because as you well know, whenever, even if you don't have a chronic condition, whenever we have a headache or we have difficulties in our lives, what ends up happening is that we actually feel stress about what is happening. So we have two layers, right? In one sense, we have the layer of the disease in this case. And on top of that, we have the layer of stress. So John Kabat-Zinn aimed at dealing with the stress associated with these conditions. And actually, what he found in the very first research studies was very interesting. The very first study in 1982 was conducted with chronic pain patients. So, as it usually goes in research studies, they had a control group and they also had an experimental group. So the control group did not take MBSR and the experimental group took MBSR. And after they took the program, what happened is that approximately 20 to 30% of patients reported feeling less pain. The actual sensation of pain was a little bit less, which is, a very decent number in terms of research. But the most interesting finding is that besides what I just told you, they found out that almost 70% of participants reported that their relationship with pain shifted in a completely different way, which meant that pain for those people was no longer a disabling factor. So most likely pain was still there, but because that relationship changed, people could go on with their lives and experience more well-being, experience more calm, more presence, more empathy in their lives. So if you think about it for a second, that's pretty much what happens to any one of us in our lives. When we change the relationship to whatever is happening in our experience, then the experience itself also tends to change, or the way we experience what is happening to us. My favorite example is traffic, right? And now we don't have a lot of traffic given the circumstances, but um, with traffic, it's the same event for everyone, right? There is traffic, but there are people who relate to traffic in such way that generates more stress. They start to generate stories inside their minds and all sorts of emotional reactions. And on the other hand, there might be folks who just take it easy with traffic, right? They just relax. They just listen to music, make a phone call, and they have a very healthy relationship with traffic, so to speak. Mindfulness is actually a way to train our capacity to relate to what's happening in our lives in a healthier way, with more compassion, with more presence. And that capacity is fueled or grows by exercising our ability to be in the present moment in a certain way, which, by the way, is one of the main definitions of mindfulness. The most widely used definition of mindfulness is, again, John Kabat-Zinn's. And John Kabat-Zinn says that mindfulness is the act of paying attention intentionally to the present moment without judging our own experience. The act of paying attention purposefully with intention to the present moment without judging our own experience. So when we listen to that, we can realize that the concept is relatively easy to grasp, but practicing it is actually challenging because most of the time our attention is not here. It's elsewhere. It's jumping into the future with worries. It's going into the past with remorse, or it's on a certain emotional reaction. So we are sort of experts in mindlessness, right? We practice mindlessness all of the time because we have our cell phones all the time to distract us. Our minds are all over the place. So mindfulness, the offer, so to speak, of mindfulness, or the promise of mindfulness, is to exercise this capacity, which, by the way, is innate. We all have it, to return to the present moment. And we all know, speaking about stress, that usually when we are in the present moment, we tend to see life in a different way. We enjoy being with our families a bit more. We enjoy nature. We take things in a different way. So again, what is important here is that mindfulness is a capacity that can be exercised. And also, it's a way of relating to what is happening in our lives moment by moment, whether it is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. It's a way to embrace all of the elements of our lives in a healthier way, so to speak. So um, important to understand is that mindfulness is a practice. And actually, what I would like to offer right now is precisely that, a practice. I have spoken about mindfulness, but like I said, mindfulness mostly is a practice. So let's devote a few minutes to practicing mindfulness, and then maybe we can chat for a little bit to know what your experience was like. So in order to do this exercise, which by the way is one of the exercises we practice on the course, you can sit with your back straight. If you want, you can close your eyes. Although you can also practice with eyes open. Just allowing your body to settle, allowing yourself to um, just simply bring your attention into the present moment, letting go of any thoughts, and simply resting your awareness in the present moment. A very good way to do this is to simply notice the sensations in your body. So if you care to, just noticing whatever sensation is present in your body right now. Could be a sensation of temperature or contact of your feet against the floor or any other sensation. Just opening up the sensations just as they are without trying to change them. And as you bring your attention to your body, let's see what happens if we gently focus our attention on the breath. Just noticing where in your body you feel your breath the most. Could be the nostrils or your throat or chest or abdomen. Just breathing naturally. There's no need to change the way you're breathing, just noticing your breath as it is right now. Noticing how the air comes in and goes out of your body. So, as you can tell, the instructions for this exercise are quite simple, just focusing your attention on the breath. However, if for whatever reason you find it difficult to focus on your breath or you find it challenging, there is another alternative for this exercise. And that is focusing on sounds. So if you care to, you can gently focus your attention on whatever sounds are present wherever you are. Perhaps cars passing by, birds singing, or even perhaps the sound of silence. Just being present with sounds, moment to moment. And if you notice that your mind wanders off, that's perfectly normal. That's just our mind doing what it does. So you can gently bring it back whenever you notice it has wandered off. So for this exercise, the first option is to focus on the breath. Second option is to focus on sounds. And there's also a third option. The third option would be to focus on a bodily sensation, which could be sensations in the hands or sensations on the feet. Just a neutral sensation in your body. And here too, just being curious about sensations. And feel free to choose any of the three alternatives that I just mentioned and just choosing one. Once you commit to one, you can stay there, focusing on whatever makes the most sense to you right now. Just checking to see if your mind is on the present moment right now. And noticing what happens when you allow yourself to be present in this way. And whenever you feel ready, you can gently open your eyes. Just giving yourself a few moments to look away from your computer screen or your phone screen. Perhaps taking a couple breaths. So this is an example of mindfulness practice. And I'm just curious to see if anyone wants to share how they're doing. I'm more than happy to read your comments on the chat. And before reading the comments, it's important because this is a feature of the class to know that this is confidential. I'm I'm not going to mention any names. When we create a confidential environment, which means that whatever happens here stays here, or we don't reveal names, that creates a safer environment. So just curious to see if anyone wants to share with 1 or 2 words how you're doing right now after practicing this exercise. There is one that says, I wasn't feeling my hands until you mentioned them. But then I felt so many sensations. It made me realize attention is powerful. I feel relaxed. I'm glad to hear that, glad to read that. Yeah, attention can be indeed very powerful. It's an internal resource, as I was mentioning a few minutes ago, that we can tap into. And when we tap into that resource, you know, we tend to experience more well-being, and we tend to change our relationships, as I was saying. So here's another comment that says, I initially felt twitching in my fingers, heart beating fast, and then later felt ease, calm, also felt peace as I heard my dog breathing next to me. That's nice. Sometimes dogs practice mindfulness, if you ask me, or at least they notice that, you know, whomever is around is cultivating this presence. So thank you for your comments. This is just an example of what we do in class. And you know, speaking about the class itself, the logistics, um, in case you don't know it, we have 8 sessions. Sessions are between 2 and 2.5 hours long. And between classes 5 or 6 or 6 or 7, we have a day-long retreat, which in this case is June 13. That's from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. And the individual classes are from 6 p.m. to 8 or 8:30 p.m. So that's the those are the dates and the days of the class. And and the class itself, it's very experiential. So we spend a lot of time practicing. There is also a lot of opportunity for dialogue, sort of like what just happened right now, but people can also connect their cameras and share with their voice. And it pretty much mimics and resembles uh, you know, a real classroom, so to speak. So it's very experiential. There are a lot of opportunities to interact. There is also some didactic component. In some classes we speak about stress, we speak about the relationship between mindfulness and stress, but the main aim of the course is to provide you with skills that you can apply in your daily life. So that's part of the logistics. That there is a question here in the chat that says, what if I have to miss some sessions? Right now with COVID-19, at least personally, I have learned that we need to be flexible, more flexible than usual. Having said that, ideally, you know, if you can attend at least 6 of the 8 classes, you will have, you know, the best experience possible during the program. However, if you are going to miss maybe 1 or 2 classes extra, what will happen is that maybe you won't have the same experience of the class. I would suggest that you take the next class again. And let me clarify again, because this has happened to some of our students. Some people are just very willing to start the class as soon as possible, and they gotta miss some classes. So you can still enroll, and in the next cycle, you can make up the classes you didn't take. So, so just to answer that question, it's fine to miss sessions, uh, but just try not to miss a lot of sessions. That's the point. So, yeah, here's another question. Thank you. That's exactly what I was going to mention next. What is expected between classes? Is there expected reading or homework? So we suggest participants to read John Kabat-Zinn's first book, which is called Full Catastrophe Living. I strongly recommend that you read it either before the class or during the class. And also there are home practice assignments. So those home practice assignments involve, and this is important also for you to know, investing, that's the word I would use, investing or committing to practicing at least 45 minutes every single day. So this is a class that has a high level of or requires a high level of commitment from participants, but at the same time, you know, as long as you commit, chances are that this could be very transformational for you. So homework practice assignments change week by week, but they are mostly composed of what we call formal practices, which are basically meditations like the one we just did. And there are also informal practices, which means that we will suggest ways for you to implement this capacity to be in the present moment in daily life. So that's an interesting distinction between the types of practice of mindfulness practice. So formal is what we just did. You stop whatever you were doing before that and just devote your time to meditating or to practice other types of body-based exercises, which we will also be doing in class. And informal practice, which basically involves incorporating what you learn in formal practice into daily life. So that's the logistics, part of the logistics of the class, and also I would like to say that in my experience, having taught this for many years, um, when people commit, meaning that they commit to attend classes and do their home practice assignments as best as they can, the transformation that happens is really remarkable. This is what research shows actually, that when people really commit to practice, they can tap into this really powerful resource that can help people to live more healthy lives, to cope with the stress, to cope with challenges,